news, history, we bench race, we talk life, and most importantly, we smash the loud pedal. It's time to turn some laps on the Mark Martin Podcast.
Episode number 29 of the Mark Martin Podcast, and we're going to go into the year 1988, the first full year with Roush Racing. Before we do that, though, make sure to head on over to markmartinpod.com, markmartinpod.com. Get all of the old episodes. Make sure you hit that listen button and subscribe on your favorite player. Give us that 5-star rating, and make sure to visit markmartinpod.com. But Mark, we're going to talk 1988, the first full year of NASCAR racing with Roush Racing. We've talked and touched a little bit about it, but let's go in depth. 1988 here on the Mark Martin Podcast.
So, 1987 kind of leads us into 88. Basically, Jack had $2 million committed to that season, was going to run 2 full seasons. That's $2 million of his own money. He was going to commit to racing 2 seasons, even if he didn't have a sponsor, just with the backing that he had from Ford and his personal money to start a team with. So, obviously he got Steve Meal, and he got Robin Pemberton. So young guys who maybe hadn't proven themselves yet, but in my eyes were a super team to start with. I was truly excited
the Red Sox
to be able to work with
victory.
Steve and Robin.
Hi,
young guys, really smart, had worked, at Petty's and been around NASCAR for long enough that they were ready to
the Boston Red Sox and the Baltimore
really come
Orioles.
into their own. So it was an exciting time. We got the first car built. The first car was an intermediate car. Got it built in time for the last race of '87 at Atlanta. And so, and we took it down and
we're underway.
And tested Atlanta on Monday and Tuesday after the Atlanta race there in November.
Takes the fastball up high.
And it went well. We were just building a trailer and building an organization of a building in Pleasant Garden. Well, not Pleasant Garden. That's where Steve lived, but Liberty, North Carolina, which was outside of Greensboro, close to Randleman, where Petty Level Cross, where Petty Enterprises was, and all. So there was an awful lot of work to do, and Jack had told Steve and Robin that we were going to run a limited schedule initially, and so when we got ready to make the announcement, when they landed Strohs, and so we had an announcement, press announcement, had the press up there to Liberty in January, and made the announcement. When Jack made the announcement that we'd signed Strohs for a sponsorship, he also told the media that we'd be running the full schedule, which was news to poor Steve and Robin, who were just not prepared for all that. There was just so much work to do, and we had half a dozen employees. Is all you had at that time. So one car finished, and a super speedway car being finished, and a Richmond car, short track car, in the works. So long story short, we went to Daytona.
His number one pitch is his fastball.
And we qualified 24th, I think, on time, something like that. And which, was, I would say we were a little bit disappointed. Our speedway car we thought was really nice. We'd been to the wind tunnel with it. We thought we should do pretty darn good. When looking back on it, that was better than we felt like it was. It was good enough. In the 125 qualifying race, they they wadded up.
Strike with a fastball.
The Heroes wadded up and wrecked in front of me, and I got involved in it. Tore the car up.
Changeup.
So the only car,
Center fielder's not
you know,
known
our
for a
backup
good
car
throwing
was
arm,
our
so on a
Atlanta
base
car.
hit, expect that runner to try and
Whew,
score.
you talking about a dog slow race car.
The count is
That thing
2-2.
was really
That is
slow.
pinpoint control right there.
So,
The catcher set a target on the corner,
somehow or
the pitcher
another,
just hammered it for
back
a strike.
then, you had to run a fan, an engine fan, a mechanical fan.
Both runners go.
And so
it's too bad
the
he watched
procedure
this guy.
was when it went to qualifying time, you put a flat fan on for
Up
qualifying.
next, Manny Ramirez.
And of course that was less horsepower because it was flat.
There's a strike.
You know, we ran a fan shroud and everything. Well, for some reason, the car was so slow that for
Lifts
some
one to
reason,
right.
Steve and Robin let
Oh,
Jack
what a catch.
try to race a flat fan. So we made 15 laps where we melted her down, blew her up. So
So they got one base hit, but couldn't do
we left
anything with it.
Daytona in a hole. But
Starting the game for the visitors.
you know, the
Bronson
guys
Arroyo.
worked really, really hard building a team, building a transporter, building outfitting a building, and getting cars built. They built a really nice short track car.
Miguel
Um,
Tejada.
We ran fairly decent. I don't really remember anything spectacular until we got to
This
Bristol,
guy's a stud.
which is about the
He
fifth or
expects to be on
sixth
that
race
mound
of the
all the way to
season.
ninth inning every time.
We're running, only three of us on the lead lap, Bill Elliott, Jeff Bodine, and
Base hit to
myself.
lead off the inning.
And
Hit that ball around hard enough to get past the infield for a
Bodine
base hit. That ball
turns
smoked.
Elliott
Most years, this
Around
hitter doesn't hit for
with-
a high average.
5 or 10 laps to go.
Gets the strike on the
And
inside end.
when he does,
This
Steve
pitcher is
calls
great at
pit.
getting ahead of batters and finishing
was-
them off with a strikeout.
Of course, Pitt put 4 tires on.
Gets a piece
And
hits
so-
it foul.
When he calls pit, I'm like, okay, yeah, here we go. Jeff Bodine stays out. And
Pitch
of course,
misses
Bill
for a
Elliott's
ball.
going to pit because there's only 3 of us on the lead lap, and he just spun out. So he's going to be behind us if we come and get 4 tires. But Jack don't
The
get it.
delivery.
He's been road racing.
He made a really
You know,
good
he's
catch
new
for
to that,
strike
and
three,
he
Mike.
don't get it. And he says,
Hey, he
why?
gets strike one, he just keeps plowing away for the strikeout.
And, you know, Jack intimidated all of us, intimidated Steve. Steve called the races, Steve Mill. And
This guy's a
brilliant
great
guy,
coach,
brilliant
and
guy.
That makes him just a very
Um,
special hitter.
But he let Jack
He takes the
intimidate
pitch to
him, and we
left.
stayed out. And of
Cabrera
course,
should
Bill
have
came
no
and got 4
problem.
tires
The catch is made.
and won the race. There's no question in our mind that if we would have come and got 4 tires, we would have won the
Anderson digs in
race
at the plate.
right out of the gate.
Here's a guy who does his homework against right-handed
But
pitching.
after that race, we weren't in contention
The
to
bat went
win
through the
any
zone.
other races.
This pitcher rings
We
up
ran
plays with
fair,
great frequency
not
every
great,
time he
broke a
toes
lot
the
of
rubber.
engines.
Arroyo
We ran a lot of
readies for the
setups,
0-1 pitch. He
um,
delivers a called strike.
that were
pitcher
not
nailed the
ideal.
corner.
We
That
built
is
Banjo
right on
Matthews cars, rear steer cars, because we were a Ford
A
team, and
three-pitch strikeout.
that was the established car at the time, although front steer cars were pretty prevalent at the time,
After 1 inning, no
which
score
drove
here.
probably a little bit better. They weren't nearly as squirrely and loose getting into the
bottom of the
corners,
order.
but our cars were rear steer cars, Banjo Master cars, because Banjo was a kind of a Ford guy, and
catches the
you know
plate
we
for
were
a
Ford.
strike.
Ford was our main backer, one of our main backers,
Slider catches the outside
and we
edge.
ran the wrong springs.
His knees are
You
at
know,
the
we'd
high
run
level
a
of the
pair
hill.
of 1500s and a pair of
And he's out.
350s at a place like Atlanta or Bristol or whatever.
This guy is
And
okay against
that
right-handed pitching.
really wasn't ideal. That was the Ford. One of the Ford engineers was high on that at the time, and so we were, you know, using
Gets the call for a
his
strike.
logic for most of the season.
And
Well,
here's
late
the
in the
delivery.
season, we got to running more like an
Mahomes takes the
1800
pitch
and a
to
1200, and you know, 350 and a 300 or a 400 and a 350 across the
Batters at
back.
this level will turn misexecuted pitches into hits all the
Much
time.
better, especially for the long run. It seemed like the equal springs would qualify fast
He
or
delivers
turn
a
a few
called
laps
strike.
fast, but we really give up on the long run, and the split spring setup seemed to stay on the
checks
tires
his swing.
longer, hold its speed for a lot longer. So, the year was a year of
ball, 2
building
strikes.
and learning. Steve and Robin and I all learning
Tries to
about
pick him
things
off.
and trying to get our feet under us. We did finally get a pole at Dover,
It's hit
of
out to
course, my
center.
favorite
Line
racetrack.
sharply, that's a base
So
hit.
we did finally get a pole, so that was a big success
And he
for us.
scores
But
the first run of the game.
we really broke a lot of
That's an
motors,
RBI double.
and
Whoa,
I was
got
in a
that run
few
home, and he
wrecks,
ended up
and
scoring
we had a
position
few
himself. Now, that's nice hitting right there.
issues here and there, and we performed probably well for a new team, but not up to our expectations. The thing that
The
you
next
have
batter
to
is
keep
Johnny
in mind
Damon.
is we had a Yankee owner in a
Out of the
southern
zone, that's a ball.
a
This
southern
right-handed pitcher
southeastern
strikes out
sport
batters
at the
consistently
time
when he's out there on the mound.
that
Out of the
was
zone,
just
that's a
starting
ball.
to sort of bloom into more of a national sport, but it was really so we had a
And the count
Yankee
is
owner
3-0.
who may or may not have been looked upon the same as if
He walks
our
him
owner
on
would have
4
been a good old
pitches.
boy.
Walks
We had a
always
driver
seem to come
from the
around to hurt you.
Midwest,
Falls behind
which
the batter,
may or
just
may
never
not
gets
have
back when
been
you get
looked
back.
upon
We'll be
as
seeing the batter
favorably
rounding third hard
as
on a hit to
if
left
it was
field.
a good old
He does
boy
not
from the
have a strong arm.
Carolinas. And heck, Robin and Steve were both from the Northeast as well. So
Fastball, strike, 100 miles per hour on the
we
radar gun.
we had that going for us or going against us. I'm not going to use that as an excuse. I'm just saying that
Sometimes you try to make the hitter chase your pitch.
we
That's exactly what
were
you saw right there.
semi outsiders, number one.
Strike with a
Number
100
two,
mile
it was
per
the
hour
day and age of
fastball.
no technical alliances, no sharing of information.
Makes great pitches, however, comes all the way back and gets the strikeout.
Jack was new to building NASCAR engines.
Misses with the
Really, he
fastball,
had done some,
99 miles per
some
hour.
work, but
This right-hander has a
nothing on this
sick
scale.
fastball.
His engine expertise
no
and
strike
super
count.
success
That
was
a purpose pitch.
in road racing
Changeup off the plate,
at
hoping
this
the batter would go
time. So he
chasing.
was sort of
3 balls, no strikes.
transitioning
Sometimes you
from
try to make the hitter chase
being
your pitch. That's exactly
a
what you saw
major
right
force in road racing to getting
Hitters
involved
count,
in
3-1.
NASCAR. So, it was a steep
That's
learning
the
curve
pitcher's
for all of
fourth
us,
walk
for
of the
Jack
game.
with the engines, for Steve
Nothing
and Robin
positive comes out of
and
this
myself.
game. Just fall behind, just fall behind
We
and
were
find
trying to
the
figure out where we fit
The
into
bases
all
are
this
full
stuff.
with 2 down.
I had finally
Misses for a ball.
gotten with a race
lost. This
team
guy's fastball gets in
with
there for
some
90s,
people
no
on it
problem.
that were more knowledgeable than
for a
I
ball
was
high.
in a lot of areas,
Sometimes you try to make the hitter chase your
and
pitch. That's exactly
was
what
trying
you
to
saw
figure
right
out
there.
how
Hard
I
to
could
hit that
help
kind of heat.
Steve and
99
Robin
miles an hour
without
for a
being
stride. Ball low.
resented. People in NASCAR didn't really like people from the outside coming in and telling them how they needed to be doing
That's 4
things.
strikeouts.
And that was always a challenge and one of the fears in the early years for
Heading
guys
into the
like
bottom of the
Trickle and
second,
myself
the score
and
is 1-0.
Rusty and whoever, was that, yeah, we knew a lot about racing and race cars, and we needed some help from established NASCAR
This
guys
lady
to
has
help
two
us
very good
adapt and implement, some of that to NASCAR. And
Great
most of
pitch, he
the
hit
old
the
guys, old guard in NASCAR, didn't want to hear anything from the driver. They wanted
A
the driver to
3-pitch
shut up and
strikeout.
drive the race
3
cars.
pitches, 3
So
strike, doesn't get easier
I
than
joined
that,
the
partner.
gym first thing in January and started lifting because I knew I wasn't going to be in the
Next
shop
up, Melvin Mora.
as much, because I knew that Robin and Steve didn't want to be told what to do by
Fastball on
some
the inside
race
corner
car
for a
driver
strike.
He's got 4
um,
solid pitches that he'll throw in any
all the
count.
time. And I knew I wasn't going to be the boss. I'd always, pretty much almost always been the boss of my car
And he puts it away for the
until
out.
this point. And I was trying to figure out how I integrated into this new system with
This
these
lefty has okay success against right-handed
really
pitching.
brilliant people, Steve and Robin and Jack Roush. Where do I fit?
The side is
Where's my
retired in
contribution? So I threw myself into physical fitness, number one. And of course, I hung out with Steve and Robin, and we talked race cars all the time. And I made my suggestions, and Steve was really open to me having input on the setups themselves. But as far as the bodies went, aero went, I had to kind of grow into that, gain their confidence.
That's what I like about this guy. I mean, he always gets it done.
Build on some success to be able to have more influence on my race cars as we went forward. So, Steve was the same way. He was learning where his place was with Jack, and I really hate it that we didn't win Bristol. That we could have won Bristol, but I understand Steve rethinking his pit call because he was questioned by the owner, and obviously, heck, if it would have been the wrong call, which it couldn't possibly have been the wrong call. The worst case scenario would be that we would have run third. Though, as it turned out, on the pit call, Steve had me stay out. Then he explained to Jack why we were pitting. Well, Bill came in and got his 4 tires and came out, lined up in second. Then the next lap, Steve pitted me and put 4 tires on, so I lined up in third. And of course, I ran second to Bill because Bill started in front of me back in the days of single file restarts. I mean, it was a slam dunk the way we were running to have pulled off that win. But Steve could have lost his job. I mean, we were all pretty timid toward Jack at the time, and afraid of him. And I was afraid of Jack for 10 years.
Fly ball get the other way to left.
I'm really bad afraid of him for 5 or 6 years. 5 or 6 years.
The runner scores on the sacrifice fly.
To me, that's
he's just intimidated us. He intimidated me. I'm sure he intimidated Steve to some degree, maybe not as much as he did me. I was really grateful for the opportunity to be able to race like that. We finished somewhere around 15th in the point standings. It was a pretty disappointing season for us. We had higher expectations, but we just got off behind from the very beginning. We just didn't have the organization, the people, and we had a lot of things, a steep learning curve for our first season, and it was really overwhelming, to try to race the full schedule against the best of the best when we weren't completely and totally prepared for it. So toward the end of the season, Jack actually let out the he leaked out that he might be looking for a driver, or that my job wasn't secure, or whatever it was. Very, it really shocked me. It never crossed my mind that, of course, I had signed a 5-year contract with him. Paid. I didn't even get paid part of the purse the first year. I got a $75,000 salary to race the full Winston Cup schedule at that time, and so I signed up for no money, and then the second year, my pay was on the contract was just 40%, 35 or 40% of the purse. May have been 35% of the purse.
He walks him on 4 pitches.
Only, no personal services, no salary, no nothing. So, I don't know. It just never dawned on me that I could be on the hot seat. And I don't think I was. I think Jack did that. Jack was a shrewd, ruthless guy, and he was fairly
Pops it up.
cold and hard to get to know at that time. And I think Stephen Robin would back that up.
Okay, if every day can't be Christmas.
And
this guy
I
needs
think
his
he
head back
did
in the
that
dugout
to
and
motivate
try
me,
next time he gets out there.
to push me. And so anyway, of course, nothing came of it other than my grief and loss of sleep over it, but nothing came of it. But that was one of the things that I really remember about that fall.
He's on his way to the plate.
As we started going into the fall, we started running the spring setups, the split spring setups, which really started to bring us around. We started really staying on the tires longer.
The Orioles have a left-hander up in the bullpen.
Being stronger, deeper into the races. Stuff started kind of showing some promise, and then we started building our first Laughlin front steer car. We started numbering cars. The first car we built was that Atlanta car, was number 1, so JR1, JR2, 3, 4. The 10th car we built was a Laughlin car, front steer car, and we will talk extensively about JR10 in the upcoming episodes, 1989 and 1990. And JR10 actually will be discussed all the way through the 93 season. For some reason, it became sort of a legendary car for us at the 6-car team. But we started building that car, so that was the beginning of transitioning toward front steer cars, which was a good move for us. Cars drove better, and we were getting on the right spring setup stuff, and we really the only thing we had to face looking toward 1989, the following season, was we were going to have to deal with a body change. And we really didn't recognize at the time that we started that initial body change that it was significantly worse for downforce than the 88 body style. And so this was going to present a challenge for us, because as you'll find out over the next 3 or 4 or 5 seasons, it was all pretty much the same body shape. 89 going forward for, I don't know, 5 seasons or so, 6 seasons, fairly the same body shape. So we wound up being faced with challenges of making downforce. It was easy to make downforce. We didn't have to try. We could follow the rules and make really nice downforce cars with the 88 T-Bird. But 1989 put us to work. I look forward to the next podcast, because 1989 and 1990 are the two. 1989 sets the foundation and puts us on fire and puts us on track to be a championship contender and to be a mainstay in Winston Cup racing. 1989 really sets the foundation. 1988, we had a lot of stuff to build and a lot of stuff to learn. 1989, we had more people. We were able to add more people. We were able to start with cars that we already had and start improving on things rather than just build things and trying to get things together and get them to the racetrack and whatnot. So we got some fun stuff coming up. 88 was a grind for sure. It was a grind for everybody involved. But as we went through the year, my physical fitness started to take shape, and just as the race team was maturing and getting stronger, I was as well from a physical standpoint. So I was building the foundation for what in the future would become a advantage for me and for the 6 car on the physical fitness side.
Tell us about, as you're setting the foundation in 1988, you're also doing the Busch Series with Bill Davis. You had a handful of races over there. Tell us about what was going on over at Busch.
Well, yeah, see, in 87, Bill built his first race car, built an ASA late model, and we did that, and then he started building a Busch car for 19. That was in 87. So he started building a Busch car for 88. So Jack was willing to let me drive for Bill and get some additional experience. And I didn't have a Busch car to drive, so this was going to enable me to run some more races and learn some things. And so Bill, built his first Busch car, and of course, with Bill, I was able to direct, give the direction of the car, who built the chassis, what setups, what springs were in, all that kind of stuff. I was able to have input and give direction on, so that was really cool. And it was kind of the same thing. Bill and I built a foundation for his car. We used 06 for the first year there in 88. We managed to get with Danny Bumpus, and Danny was able to hook us up with Carolina Ford Dealers sponsorship, which was really, really awesome. What a great sponsor, especially living right there in the Carolinas. It's North and South Carolina Ford Dealers. So they got behind us and did some advertising, which was really good for me. Used our car and used me in some TV ads and print ads and stuff. It's really a good deal for us. There again, we ran,
Yank to the left side.
Okay. Pretty damn good, but our foundation was being built for the following season. 1989 is when we really land on our feet and really, start to kick ass. With Bill there in 88, we still ran the V8 engine just like I did in 87. Didn't have the V6s yet, although the Ford V6 was in the works and coming. I remember talking about Jack and how he intimidated me. I really liked the way Jack showed Steve and Robin and how to build the exhaust pipes. So you had to smash the exhaust pipes underneath the frame rails because they came out below the frame rails of the cars. So you smashed them down. Well, Jack was engineer and he was smart as hell. He just said, well, here's how you do that. You make a cone. You make this. The pipe gets bigger as it smashes so that the volume of the pipe stays the same and it flow stays the same. It was really cool. So I showed Bill, went to Bill's shop, showed Bill, and we built pipes like that for the Busch car as well.
He really knows how to steal a bag.
That got back to Jack. Jack called me up and tore my ass off for it. So bad that I wound up crying because, dude, all I wanted to do is do good. All I wanted to do is be a good racer. All I wanted to do is win races. All I wanted to do is be approved of, and he tore my ass up for like I was, stealing and spreading, secrets, his speed secrets all over the garage and everything else. It really hurt me. It really, really did hurt me. But Jack, he gave me lots of spankings the first several years that I raced. He was pretty tough. He was pretty tough on me. You know, he didn't trust drivers. He didn't trust me.
In that situation, the fielders need to get the sure out at
He
first. Sometimes
wanted to make sure he kept me down.
That's exactly what you
and
saw right there.
kept me, you know,
A liner.
sort of. I felt like he wanted to keep me under his thumb. And
A run scored.
and so, you know,
That's
it
an
was
RBI single.
it was tough. It was a tough year.
They are just
88 was a
wearing
tough
this
year.
guy
It was a
out.
tough year.
You're
We
thinking
had
about
some
going to
fun
the
with
end
Bill's
soon.
car. We had some fun with the 6 car. Steve and Robin were a joy to work with, and we had some fun. But God, did we have
1-1
frustrations?
Pitcher looks a little
Oh,
annoyed with that call. Kyle. He
unbelievable
sure thought the batter went
frustrations.
around, and I agree.
It was a very difficult
Ortiz
year.
hits it over
Not
to
having
third.
technical alliance, not having anybody to
Makes the
show you
catch
how to
to
do,
record the out.
you know, anything, having to figure it out on your own it was a challenge.
Tell us about that sponsor,
Ramirez
Stroh's Light.
takes
You ever
one
get
inside.
an extra case of beer
Sometimes
every
you
once in
try
a
to
while?
make the hitter
Yeah, I
chase
got
your
beer,
pitch. That's
got
exactly
plenty
what
of
you
beer,
saw
which
right
wasn't any good for me because I
Catch
hadn't
misses.
quit yet.
there. Sometimes you try to make the hitter
in
chase your
88.
pitch. That's exactly what you saw right there.
I was trying to keep drinking in check because I had this
2-2 the count.
finally, after all these years, I had
Out number 3.
This
with a man
opportunity.
left on first.
the one that
After
almost
4.5,
made me faint
the
when I shook
Orioles
hands with
trail
Jack
by
Roush,
5 runs.
the one that allowed me a
Next,
chance to,
John Casey.
He is
you
out
know,
there
realize
doing
my
none
dreams,
stuff.
work with Steve Meal, Robin Pemberton,
The ball is hit
and
down the
race,
line.
possibly race for a win in NASCAR Cup
Good start
Series.
to the
So
inning. A leadoff single.
I really
The
tried,
Orioles have someone up in the bullpen.
but you know, keep drinking in check. But you know, over the years, especially after the brutal, you know, failure of 1983, I had developed demons. You know, I was very resentful or bitter about what had happened in NASCAR and the fact that I'd lost my entire career and the fact that I had to go back late model racing and start from scratch, not where I left off. I didn't get to start anywhere near where I left off and left there. I had to start from scratch.
Ground ball
You
hit
know,
to short.
the days of free cars are over
They
from
turn
Ray
the
Dillon.
double play.
You know,
Got that double play was smooth as silk,
those kind of
just like
things.
they practice it, big boy.
It was just it. You know, I had
With
developed
4 innings remaining, the
sort
score
of,
is 7-2. This game is
deep
brought to you
down,
by EA Sports. EA Sports, it's in the game.
resentment and sort of bitterness at this time,
The
and
bottom of the order's coming up.
so I dealt with those things quietly and personally, but they
Fastball
influenced
missed away for a ball.
the way I
Sometimes
acted.
you try to make the hitter chase your pitch.
Some.
That's exactly what you
And
saw
so this
right
was
there.
this was a time when I really tried to I had gotten a little bit
It's
more
1 ball,
wilder
1
and
strike.
crazier, you know, with
Ground ball pulled
with
to
the
the right
alcohol
side.
thing.
They make the play.
And it was time to take a good hard look at that and say, you know, keep it in check or risk losing your opportunity. So I tried to
Down
keep it
low
in
for a
check
ball.
in 1988.
All while having a beer sponsor on your car.
You know, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a beer or 2 or 3 or 4. There's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, some people just don't know how to act. And, you know, I
And
was
that's a
one of
strike
those
swinging.
guys that every so
Ooh,
often
fooled
would
with that
forget
breaking ball. He's got a good one today.
how to act. And that was what we needed to avoid. Well, as it turned out,
The appeal
I
goes
didn't
to
feel
third. Mahomes
successful
goes down
enough
on
at
strikes.
and decided New Year's Day, 1989, was the day that I would
Stepping
that I
in,
would
1 for 3.
put it
Mike
behind
Lowe.
me for
2 outs
a
and the
lifetime.
bases are empty.
And so I quit. I got New Year's Eve was the last last drink that I had.
Well, we're going to get into what was a phenomenal year in 1989 in the next episode of the Mark Martin podcast. Good things are to come. We're going to have a lot of fun. Some really good years coming up here in the next couple of years, right, Mark?
Yeah, 2 really, really, really good years the next 2 years. Very important. Went from a struggling little racer to within a whisker of Winston Cup champion, all in the course of a couple years here. So these next 2 years are going to be fun to talk about.
All right, so that wraps up episode number 29 of the Mark Martin podcast, year number 1988. Again, make sure to hit markmartinpod.com, markmartinpod.com. Hit and subscribe on all the different players. Leave that 5-star rating and follow on social media at Mark Martin Pod.
Thank you for subscribing and listening to the Mark Martin Podcast. Remember to give us a 5-star rating in your app store. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Mark Martin POD. The Mark Martin Podcast is a production of the Accelerated Podcast Network.
0-2 the count.
Race fans, it's time to buckle in and listen to the fastest hour in racing radio. Your driver is the multi-time NASCAR winner and Hall of Famer Mark Martin. We cover racing, grassroots, history, we bench race, we talk life, and most importantly, we smash the loud pedal. It's time to turn some laps on the Mark Martin Podcast.
There's the drive. No one's going to catch that one. Home run.
Episode 28 of the Mark Martin podcast, and we dive into the year 1987. We're going to go to the Busch Series this year, but before we get to that, make sure to hit the website, markmartinpod.com, markmartinpod.com. Find all of the listen links on the website. Listen to older episodes of the Mark Martin podcast, and make sure to hit that subscribe button. Go to the Connect tab, go to the Listen tab, and find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spreaker, Spotify, YouTube, and many more. But we're going to get into episode number 28, Mark.
Yeah, what a year. I want to start this out by saying, some of the things and some of the stories that I tell are the way I remember them, the way I perceived them. And perception isn't always reality, just so you know. So if I'm telling a story, it's how I remember it. It's how I perceived it. And someone else may have not perceived it exactly the same way. So that kind of prefers some of the stories that I'm going to tell here on this one. But we start off the season there. We get a late start again. Made the deal to move to Greensboro. David Levendow's shop was in Randleman, North Carolina. His brother-in-law, Bruce Lawmaster, was going to own and start up a Busch Series car, which is now known as Xfinity. We're going to use prototype engines because of my connections there. And David had a cube van and an open trailer and a shop that was big enough for one car in it, one race car in it, and some room to move and some move around there a little bit of room to get around, and a few some equipment to work with, not a ton, but a little bit, some tools and whatnot. So Arlene and I and the kids packed up and got us an apartment in Greensboro, and I don't think we really got into full swing for getting ready for the season until after the first of the year, which is a terrible late start. We used Jesse Koch for a chassis builder. It was right down the road there in Randleman. Jesse built badass short track Busch cars Sam Ard ran his cars. Exclusively. A lot of guys ran his cars. But Sam Ard was local and won tons of races. So Jesse was quite a character. Jesse drank about a 12-pack of Pepsi every day.
He's running.
And we had to go to help him build the car. Another one of those deals, like my deal with Dylan. I run a Dylan chassis, I should be able to just go pick it up. But no, I'd have to go help build it. So there was David Lovendahl, who was, had been with me in the early 80s, late 70s, moved from Arkansas with me to Dillon's, to Indiana. And now our paths are crossing again in 87. So it's David and I and one other person. We had one other full-time employee. My memory doesn't serve me perfectly. I think that we had that third employee was different at different periods of time. But the guy that I really remember is Bobby Leslie. Bobby came in and worked, and I think he came in and volunteered for quite some time in the evenings, and then eventually wound up being an employee. But we had to get our car built for Daytona, and then had to get our short track car. We're going to do the whole season on 2 race cars, a speedway car, which ran the 1 mile and up, and a short track car that ran the 3/4 mile and down racetracks. So there was a lot of short tracks on the schedule back then. So we just didn't have very much help. And that was an awful lot of work to do, with stock bodies and the whole thing. It was just really major. Worked 18 hours a day, 7 days a week in January. I eventually, right before we left for Daytona, I broke it in hives from my head to my feet. And I still don't, I guess it was just nerves. I guess I was just about to have a nervous breakdown. When we left for Daytona, our Richmond car, which was the second race, wasn't built yet. So that was going to be a major thrash. It was just an incredible feat for us to get finished and make it down to Daytona. And we did. We made it to Daytona, and we had a good first outing. We ran fairly decent, not super fast, but ran good in the race. I think we ran 6th. I think we finished 6th or 7th, something like that. And I remember after the race, in that open trailer, we stopped like at Denny's, I think, or something to eat Saturday afternoon late, after the races, on our way home in the tow truck. And I remember the right rear tire being flat when we came out of Denny's. So I thought, man, we were lucky that didn't happen on the racetrack. But it was a good way to start off the season. One of our issues was because of my Ford connections and because of the little bit of support that we were getting from Ford, which wasn't a lot, but was more than nothing. They didn't have a V6 that was ready to race yet. So we had to run a V8.
Is in there for a strike in its own.
And so the engine was a ton heavier, and the weight rules, we had to carry a 100-pound weight penalty as well. So we were racing against all V6s. That was when Buick was big into the V6 scene and had a tremendous engine, made really great power and all that stuff. So that was a challenge for us. But we were the only one doing it. There was one other Ford that ran a limited schedule, Glenn Jarrett, and the Faxtons. The Faxtons owned the car, number 24, and Glenn Jarrett drove it. Gosh, Glenn was so much fun. Seemed like we always parked next to each other. We were parked next to each other at Daytona. and several other places. Glenn was such a great guy and fun, and we had something in common because both of us were running oddball race cars against all those Buicks. But
And here's the delivery.
you know, we got back from Daytona and we got the car done for Richmond. I don't know how, but we did. But God, we worked. You know, we just
Three strikes.
we just barely made it. We barely made it. We were on a shoestring program. It was just me and
Next
two
at
other
the
guys that
plate,
we did have
Manny
some good
Ramirez.
volunteer help that would come in the evenings that worked at Petty Enterprises, was right down the road, and also
Takes a pitch
Cliff
just
Stewart's
off the plate, 1-0.
50 Cup car was right down the road too, but I don't think we had anybody for Cliff Stewart's. Mostly we had some good help. Ray Warren, some good guys that helped us pit the car and would come in every once in a while in the evenings and help, but mainly pit the car on race day. We had a good little deal going, and we got to we got to Dover, which is, you know, in the spring. What is that, 1st of May or something?
He's around first.
And I don't remember where we started
And he's in
winning
there
poles,
standing with a double.
but we won.
All right, let's see if they can take
I don't
advantage
know,
of that
half a
now that
dozen
they've got that
poles.
guy in scoring position.
I was still learning the cars because the setups were so much different than other cars. They weren't anything like Cup cars. Well, they were. They were more like Cup cars than they were ASA cars, but they were still different. It was a significantly different weight than some other things. And I was learning what would work for those races and those heavy cars for the long haul. I was I had found how to make speed pretty quickly,
There's
but
a
to
line
make
drive.
them stay on the tires a long
He's
time
rounding third.
was another challenge because a lot of those races were 200
And the run
laps.
comes home.
No pit
Learned it
stop,
well there to score
200
from second on
lappers.
that
So,
single.
you know,
That kind of hustle wins you ball games.
or one pit stop, you know. And so we got to Dover, and gosh, I was running against these all-stars like, you know, Tommy Houston and Tommy Ellis, you know, Sam Ard, Jack
Whoa.
Ingram,
Sometimes you try to make the hitter
Brett
chase your
Bodine,
That's exactly what you saw right there.
just L.D. Ottinger. I just remember so many
Takes
incredible
one high.
drivers on that circuit that year. And Tommy Ellis, you know, a lot of people, I'll say this, there was quite a few people that didn't really care for Tommy Ellis. I liked Tommy. I never had any trouble at all with Tommy, but some people,
That one splits
like
the
Tommy, got in a
outfielder.
lot of fights, I think. So evidently, he didn't have as good a relationship with some people on the racetrack as he and I
A
did,
run
but we had
crosses
great
the plate.
mutual
The key to that
respect.
play was the runner
Tommy
moving in
treated
scoring
me with
position.
great respect.
Up next
Anyway,
with one
Tommy and
single
Brett,
already, Mike
I was
Lowe.
running third, and Tommy
On
and
an
Brett
occasion, this hitter
racing
really
each
doesn't
other
hit
for the
average, but
win.
he'll get the job done.
late in the race and
That
took
runner on
each other
second is
out.
going to be
So
going on anything
I got
hit
my
on the
first
ground on the
win
right side.
early in the
In that
season,
situation, the field
which
need
was
to get the
huge.
shirt out at first.
Then 2 weeks later, we go to Orange County Speedway.
The count's 1-2.
And set on the pole there, and God, we ran good.
He hits it down the line.
We were leading the race late in the race. We were leading, and the last
He
lap,
reaches with a one-out single.
coming off the floor
think
for
it's time to
the
make a
white
pitching
flag,
change. And this guy
something
looks
didn't
dog-tired.
feel right in the front of the car, but I didn't know what it was. I went down into turn one. I didn't have hardly any brakes.
Damon
The brake
steps
pedal
into
was
the batter's
soft.
box.
Anyway, I made it back around and won the race, and pulled up there, the start-finish line to do the checkered flag picture or whatever, and the right front hub caught on fire.
Hit to the right side.
And back then, you could run aluminum hubs
The Orioles have a
in,
lefty warming
in
up
that
in the
series.
bullpen.
And of course, we had aluminum hubs because, you know, I still built the lightest race cars I knew how to build, and
Hit towards
my
second
cars were
base.
really light. They were nice. Those were two
He
nice
drops the
little
ball
race
and the
cars, I'll
runner is
tell you.
safe.
Anyway,
Now let's see if that
I
one comes back.
was lucky enough to win that race with a broken hub on the last lap. So the only thing that was holding it on was the rotor, you know, in the brake pads on the rotor. So we won 2 races back to back, and actually the phone started ringing from interested people in Cup racing. And of course I was a Ford driver, so Ford people were the ones that were most interested. You know, Bud Moore with the legendary 15 car showed a little interest. Ford was kind of getting high on my stock.
On the ground.
And Steve Meal, who had always been fun to talk to and a very respectful fan of mine,
He got the double play.
kept telling me, you know, Jack has hired me. We're building a Cup team. And Jack's going to be calling you. And of course, that went on for 3 months. And we never had called me. So I was starting to get worried about that. You know, I didn't hardly know whether to believe it or not after a long period of time. But eventually, Jack did call and asked me to come up to Detroit and talk to him about his plans to race the Cup Series. And so that was late in the season. Gosh, that was
I think that mound
October, I
visit just
think.
jacked that guy's rhythm.
And so anyway, to move on from that, before I get into the story of going and seeing Jack, we go on to win another race that year as well. We win at Richmond as well. So
Didn't like that one, and it's
we
a
won
ball,
3
1-0.
races, but we blew up a lot of motors. So we weren't reliable. Finished, I don't know, 8th or so in the points because we blew up a lot. Fell out of a lot of races, but sat on the poles. We're fast. Won races. The phone's starting to ring about driving Cup cars now. So that was something that I didn't really intend on. When I took the job, I took it because it was an opportunity for me to race in a series where I would have the opportunity to do better financially for my family. Number one. Number 2, because I'd won the ASA championship 4 times and was looking for a new challenge.
Hit foul.
To be challenged in my career was always important to me. So that was kind of a extra benefit to you know, having the Cup guys starting to call and taking a look. One of the things that I remember that was remarkable about that year was because of my affiliation with Ray Dillon, Bobby Moon had let me phrase that differently. Bobby Moon, there was a series called the Late Model Stock Car Series, late model stock, down there in you know, around Charlotte or in the South and Southeast and stuff. And basically what it was a late model with some different rules. Most people ran truck trailing arms with those cars, and Bobby Moon had decided he wanted to try one of these Dillon cars. So it was, you know, it was a completely different front snout. It was a 3-link rear suspension and all that stuff. So it was really different. It was a spool in the rear end instead of Detroit locker. Most of those late model stock cars were just Bush cars that were, you know, sort of derived into a late model, a derivative of Cup cars, you know, that was kind of molded into late models. So this was a really different chassis.
Sometimes you try to make the hitter
Bobby
change your pitch.
got in
That's
touch
exactly
with me
what
and
you
wanted me
saw
to
right
run
there.
it at Martinsville. It's a conjunction weekend with the Busch Series race at Martinsville at the end of the year.
Sometimes you try to make the hitter change
So
your
I said,
pitch.
sure.
That's exactly what you
So
saw
I go
right
up to
there.
Bobby's place and do the setup on the car, get her all set up. We go down there, and
Sometimes you try to make the hitter change your pitch. That's exactly
I mean,
what you saw right
the Busch race was not unremarkable. I know that we broke an oil line in a race and spun around and stuff. But one of the things is I had made the deal with Jack at this point, and Steve Meal, of course, was an employee there, and Steve went to Martinsville with me. Steve and his wife Lisa went to the race with Arlene and I, just to get to be around me and see me in action, whatever. Anyway, so Steve was there, so that was pretty cool for me. The Busch race was uneventful. I mean, we broke oil line, whatever. But that late model stock car race was eventful. So we sat on the pole. I think we broke the track record. And the outside pole was very beggarly. And his car was owned by Jason, somebody out of Durham area, who was the supposedly president of that chapter of the Hells Angels. So, okay, whatever. So they threw the green flag of the race, and Barry actually beats me off of turn 2 and takes the lead. I spend quite a few laps working Barry to get back by him, and finally I get a nose under him in the middle of 1 and 2, and we come off that corner, and I perceived that he cut back down a little bit, and obviously I didn't live.
Sometimes you try to make the hitter.
So Barry goes around.
That's exactly what you saw right there.
Well, we go on and run the 150 lapper or whatever it is. We go on and win the race. And after the race, oh boy, there's some people pissed off, man. I'm not used to this. These guys are mad, and this guy, he's got crowding around the car. People are crowding around the car. Big guys, you know. This guy's standing back there, and it's Jason, the owner of Barry's car. He's got a knife. It's about a foot long, and he's cleaning his fingernails.
Takes the pitch high
and staring at me. I see him standing back there staring at me, cleaning his fingernails with his damn knife. I ain't too worried yet, but I know they're mad. They can't get to me, but I know they're pissed. So anyway, when Arlene comes up to get a picture taken with me, I says, I don't want anybody to know that you're my wife. And she started laughing, and she said, it's too late. They think she's your wife, Lisa Meal. Oh boy, we had Lisa don't take no shit from nobody at all.
Clocked at 98
so
miles an hour,
what had happened was on the way up to the to get a picture taken, one of them said, that's a hell of a way to win a race. And she just turned around and said, we got to check, didn't we? Or the trophy or something like that. And so they come up there and they get their picture and everything, and I'm like scared to death. You know, I'm scared. I'm gonna get
third out, we go
beat
to the
up and whatever. I've got all this
After
vision
8.5, the score is 10-3.
You know, the Hells Angels riding their motorcycles through my up and stomping my butt. So anyway, they say something else, and of course Lisa flips them off. Don't ask them what the hell they were looking at. So Lisa wasn't scared at all.
That one right by
but anyway, we finish up all the stuff, and I get the hell out of there, man. I'm getting the hell out of there. So I get the hell out of there, get back home with my family, 4 little girls in the house, go to bed at 10 o'clock, about 10:30, you know, in the apartment, the doorbell rings. And I think, oh my God, the Hells Angels are here, and they're going to ride their Harleys in through the plate glass window and come in here and beat my ass and rape my family. You know, we're in trouble. And so I get up and I go to the door, and it's Jimmy Coltrane brought the trophy. Like I gave a damn whether I got the trophy or not. But he was bringing me the trophy because I left it. Of course I left it. I got the hell out of there as quick as I could. Anyway, that was pretty funny. No, that whole thing, looking back on it, was pretty funny, but it wasn't funny at the time. I had to have Lisa Neal be my bodyguard and do my light work. So that was pretty cool. But the story, I got a little out of timing there. The story really was because I think that was about our final race of the season. I had already gone up to Detroit to meet with Jack. And, he took me all through the engine sales, the dynos, all that stuff. And then he took me in his little office. It was about a 10 by 10. Nah, it wasn't that big. No way. It might have been 8 foot by 8 foot. It was a tiny little office. And we sit down and he started telling me, he says, Mark, I'm going to do this thing. It seemed like he told me I've saved up. I've got $2 million in the bank. I'm going to race for 2 years without, I don't have to have a sponsor. I've got the money to do this for 2 years. That's my commitment. It's a 2-year commitment. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it right. Here's what I'm going to do on my engines. Here's what I'm going to buy all the tires we need. And Steve Neal, Robin Pemberton. We're going to do this thing and do it right. And he said, I would like for you to drive it for me. And I said, well, I'll do it. And we stood up and shook hands, and I got lightheaded for a second. Seriously, I got a little bit dizzy because I couldn't believe that I was finally going to get a chance, in what I believed. I believed in the program that he was putting together. However, I never asked if I was going to get paid or not, or what I would get paid. That was not important to me at the time. So anyway, as I found out later, I just barely got paid anything. Jack was committed. We did. He had a little bit of money. He was going to put all his money toward good, really toward equipment. I would say hardware. I'm sure that Steve and Robin, weren't making anything spectacular either. They bought into the program just like I did. They believed that he was going to give us the tools and resources that we needed to be all that we could live up to our potential. And so it was supposed to be 1988 was supposed to be a limited schedule. However, we'll talk about that in the next podcast. Those things changed late in the going, but we did get our first car put together in November. It was a Atlanta car. It was an intermediate car. We got the car all put together, and we took it down to Atlanta, and the race was on Sunday, and we tested the car at the racetrack on Monday, and so that was our first outing in 1987. So we didn't race. We just went down there and shook the car down and learned some things. But we started building a trailer, a hauler, and started building, built our first car and then started building a super speedway car for Daytona after that. So that kind of wraps up the highlights that I can think of 1987. That's, like I said before, some of those events are the way I perceived them. They may have not been exactly like that if you would have been standing there watching them, but that deal that went down at Martinsville was that's a funny story.
Well, in 1987, you had a lot going on. There's a lot of different cars, a lot on your plate. I mean, that was just there's a number of cars that you were dealing with, and then obviously the 31 car. Now tell us about the Fat Boys Barbecue sponsorship. Anything come of that? Did you actually consume any of that? How did that all come together?
Oh yeah, we ate some of that barbecue every chance we got because it was free. It was very important. Um, but that was Fat Boys Barbecue was owned by Bruce Longmaster that owned the car. So that's where that came from. And to be real honest with you, he gave us everything that he could give us for one season, 1987, and that was a pivotal season in my career. And I would say, uh, jokingly, I would say we broke him. We didn't break him, but he was smart enough to get out of the business. Of course, I went on to do my thing with Roush, and they didn't. They closed up shop, so it was a one year deal. And I'm sure that it was very costly for Bruce, but we did it on a shoestring budget. We did it. We didn't spend, any more than any of our competition was doing it. It was a lot different back then. And like I said, we did the full season with two race cars. The full season. That meant if we knocked the snout off on Saturday night of our short track car and had a race the next weekend, we put a snout on it and a body on it and ductwork in it and got it back going and got it back to the racetrack.
The Busch Series obviously was this was a huge year for you, reestablishing yourself, but you would go on to race the Busch Series for a long time. Tell us why, well now Xfinity Series, but tell us why you had an affinity for the Busch Series. It seemed like, is it more of an R&D thing? Did you just grinding and driving and just keep working and finding things out, or what brought you to the Busch Series and racing a lot?
87, I learned how to win races with those cars, which was completely different than ASA, winning races with ASA cars. But I was way far from conquering it. In other words, those races I won, I felt fortunate to win. I had a lot more to learn to be able to beat, Jack Ingram and Sam Ard and Tommy Houston and Tommy Ellis and all those guys. Consistently, I had a lot of work to do. And so when I got with Jack, that was my primary focus, was cup racing, which was another new change. But going forward, I still had work to do and I still had a lot to learn about those Southern race cars, those NASCAR cars, tracks, tires, setups, aerodynamics, rules, and how to work within the rules and make better cars and all that stuff. And I was a racer, and one's not enough, you know. So the more I could race, the more I was doing what I was supposed to do. The more I was learning, and the more opportunities I had to win races. And that was really, for me, at this point in my life, I had shifted my focus from trying to win championships, to build my identity, to build my recognition, and all those things, which had served me well in the 70s and 80s. I turned my focus to winning races instead of, worrying about points and championships and all, because I'd reached NASCAR, so I didn't have to do that anymore. And what was really important to me was winning races, and it always has been. Today, it still is. I would much rather be winning. I'd much rather win 5 races and not win the championship as win 1 race and win the championship, because the championship is just, with today's format and cup, it's different. But before, the championship was just accumulation of a season, which could be affected by flat tires and broken dollar parts. And that could make the difference between whether you won a championship or not. I didn't give a dang about that. I wanted to win checkered flags and trophies. And that paycheck, going to the pay shack, That's what was important to me. I had a family to feed, um, you know, and what was important was how big is the trophy and how much does it pay.
Tell us about there's a car. I'm not sure if you specifically mentioned this, but it was a number 2 SIA roofing car, a brown car.
Okay, that is when Bill Davis decided that that he wanted to own race cars. Prior to that, Bill had been my gas man. In the late 70s, he would come with my dad. In early 80s, he would come with my dad to a lot of races, drive from Arkansas to Wisconsin or Indiana or wherever we were running, and he would be my gas man because Bill was bigger. He worked for my dad in the office, and I'd known Bill since I was an early teenager, probably since I was 14. I knew Bill, and he worked in the office with my dad in the trucking company, and he was big. He was the ideal guy to gas, so he'd been my gas man a lot, and been my gas man in the Cup races, and early, not in '82, but when I was doing 5 races in '81, he probably was the gas man in all of those, I would guess. Anyway, he decided he wanted to build a race car. So he had Shaw, he got with me. He says, I'd like to build a car, I'd like for you to drive it, Sure. Okay, well, let's have Shaw build us because Shaw's right there in Batesville. Instead of building a Dillon car, because I didn't get them free anymore anyway, we decided to build a Shaw car, asphalt car, and late model, and that was it. The number 2, we rounded up SAI on it for sponsorship for Milwaukee, Nashville. The car was super fast. We should have won the Winchester 400. We should have won a couple of other places. Man, we were so freaking fast in that car everywhere. And we went to Nashville for the All-American 400 at the end of the year. And I had that race won, was leading the race. There were 2 other cars in the lead lap. I had wore the brakes out, and the piston had popped out of the front caliper. So I had 0 brakes, but I was still so far ahead. Darrell Waltrip was running second. I was so far ahead, 5 laps to go, nothing to it. I got this race won. It's a done deal. And the freaking caution comes out. What are you going to do? Darrell comes and gets tires, and everybody blame me for not coming and getting tires. It's like, how in the hell am I supposed to come and get a pit stop? I can't stop. Got no brakes. So I finished second anyway. And then after the race, and this is controversial, but here again, this is perception. I don't know what the truth was, but I wouldn't put it past Darrell and his gang to do this. At the at the scales, Darrell doesn't make weight, and he don't make weight, and he don't make weight. Well, they let him gas the car, and I hear that the gas can was full of lead shot, but I don't know that's a fact. I do know that a bunch of lead fell out of somebody's race car when we rolled off a pit road onto the racetrack. Everybody knows that. It's a known fact. A bunch of blocks of lead fell out of somebody's car. And some rumor had it that it might have been Darrell's, and that's how he made weight after the race, was a dump can full of lead shot. So anyway, I was brokenhearted because I can't tell you how bad I needed the money. I think that thing paid $10,000 to win. And I didn't care about nothing else but that we didn't get the money. I needed it bad. But we got second. If we'd have had brakes, it would have been a no-brainer. Easy race to win, or no caution. With 5 laps to go, the caution comes out and it just killed us. I mean, I had 0 brakes, and there wasn't anything I could do about it. So, and Bill went on to build a Busch car as well, and we'll get into that. I I don't recall. That car, the Busch car, came in the next season in '88. The late model came in '87. When we did, I don't know, we did Milwaukee, we did Cincinnati, we did Nashville, Winchester, several shows that were on off weekends for the Busch Series.
So, I mean, but to back up on that number 2 car, just think about this in the grand scheme of things. That was the start for Bill Davis, who went on to do many big things in NASCAR, and then obviously Larry Shaw, who's had his legendary career. Also, all you guys from this small town of Batesville, Arkansas.
That's correct. And Bill's shop was out back of his house in Batesville, and Bill went on to win the Daytona 500 and the Southern 500. And a number of other big races, and of course the truck championships, and all kinds of success. Larry Shaw, he stopped when he saw the sparks flying in the trucking company shop when he was running his auto repair shop, Larry Shaw's Auto Clinic down the street. He was interested in what the heck was going on in that shop, stopped in there and started coming in there in the evenings and helping, and evolved into a full-time employee for about a year and a half, and then decided that it was too much travel, too much grind for his family and he to continue. So eventually he decided he'd start building race cars, and is obviously a legendary dirt car builders. Built, I don't know, 5,500 chassis now. Certainly got to be record. He's got to be the guy that's built more than anybody else. He all right there in Batesville, and then you've got legendary racers like Billy Moyer and Wendell Wallace and Wayne Brooks and Jeff Taylor and Peyton Taylor, and I don't know who all else. There's a whole bunch of really legendary dirt drivers from Batesville. So Batesville to the dirt world is crazy. It's crazy concentrated with talent.
Not only the dirt world, but obviously going on to NASCAR. A lot of you guys had great careers, and just it's phenomenal that a small area like that, a small concentration, has had that big of an impact in all these different forms of racing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm still kind of confused by it all. It's just it's been amazing time, and that place has produced some great racers, that area, for sure.
Well, that will wrap it for episode number 28 of the Mark Martin Podcast. Again, get on the website, markmartinpod.com, markmartinpod.com. Hit those listen links, subscribe, and give us that 5-star rating.
Thank you for subscribing and listening to the Mark Martin Podcast. Remember to give us a 5-star rating in your app store. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Mark Martin POD. The Mark Martin Podcast is a production of the Accelerated Podcast Network.
Carl's Jr. unleashes the monster. It's not like anything you've ever seen before. It's bigger, beefier, baconier, and cheesier. With 2 1/3-pound Angus beef patties, 4 strips of crispy bacon, and triple cheese, the only way to stop it is to eat it. Get ready to face the new Monster Angus Thick Burger from Carl's Jr. Feed your happy. Limited time only at participating Carl's Jr. restaurants. Price and participation may vary.
Race fans, it's time to buckle in and listen to the fastest hour in racing radio. Your driver is a multi-time NASCAR winner and Hall of Famer Mark Martin. We cover racing, grassroots, history, we bench race, we talk life, and most importantly, we smash the loud pedal. It's time to turn some laps on the Mark Martin Podcast.
Episode number 27 of the Mark Martin Podcast, and we're going to go into year 1986. a return to NASCAR and short track racing. But before that, again, make sure to hit markmartinpod.com on your internet browser, markmartinpod.com, and find all of the listen links. Go back and listen to some of the older episodes, and make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast player. Available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spreaker, Spotify, YouTube, and many more. markmartinpod.com.